Hello everyone and welcome back. In today's video, we have another newsroom review here to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at some signings from our past couple of days, some injury updates, some pretty big pieces of news, and we've got some trade rumors involving the Wings, Penguins, and the Devils. We'll touch on all of this coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey Channel. Once again, if you guys haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button down below. Tell all your friends the best hockey content on YouTube is right here at the End-to-End Hockey Channel. So if you haven't already, subscribe. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, trying to hit 650 in the next couple of weeks. So if you can, leave a subscribe for this help with the channel. Leave a like. Love to hear your guys' opinion on all this was discussed here today. So leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to stay tuned for some live videos coming out in the next couple of weeks. We're going to be doing some playoff live streams, starting not next week, but the week after. So I should have a schedule once the playoffs are announced. So stay tuned for that. And definitely don't forget to keep up with the channel, as we're going to continue to have very interesting hockey content throughout the last week of the regular season going into the playoffs. So don't forget to keep up with the channel. But in today's video, we've got another news and rumor video here to discuss. As per usual, we'll start with a couple of signings. There were 4 signings from our past couple of days that I want to touch on here today. So the first one is in the Boston Bruins organization. They have signed James Hagens. Hagens is a center. He's 19 years old. He was the 7th overall pick in this past year's draft, a first round in 2025 by Boston. He gets a 3-year ELC with AAV of $975,000. That is for this year and the next 2 seasons. So it starts for the rest of the season. He's been playing over in the NCAA, putting up 23 goals and 47 points in 34 games. So really good numbers over in the NCAA. Like I said, I think Hagens has the potential to be a really solid 1C going forward for the Boston Bruins. Hagens might wind up getting some chances towards the end of the regular season, maybe even in the playoffs with Boston Bruins. So we'll have to wait and see, but I think if he does play this year, he could be like a decent third liner. So very interesting note there, but Hagens has signed his ELC. And for this year and the next 2 seasons, he'll be under contract with Boston, so very interesting note there. The Minnesota Wild have signed undrafted 22-year-old left-shot defenseman Viking Gustavsson Nyberg. Nyberg is, like I said, a defenseman. He gets a 2-year ELC with AAV $975,000. That's for this year and next year for the Minnesota Wild, so very interesting note there. Nyberg has been playing over in the NCAA, putting up 11 assists in 38 games, which as a defenseman isn't half bad. So I'm not sure if he'll get into any NHL action, but still, it's a very interesting note there that the Wild have signed an undrafted player. Another undrafted player that got signed is 21-year-old left-shot defenseman Jake Livanovich. Livanovich is a 21-year-old left-shot defenseman, as I just mentioned. Also, just like with Nyberg, gets a 2-year ELC, AAV of $975,000. That begins at the start of next season. He's been playing over in the NCAA as well, putting up 5 goals and 20 assists for 25 points in 39 games. Not too bad there. Livanovich, I think, eventually could be a solid third-pair defenseman for Pittsburgh, but not anytime in the very near future, so very interesting note there. And then the Philadelphia Flyers have signed Jack Berglund. He's a center/left winger. He's 20 years old. He was a 2nd-round pick back in the 2024 draft by the Philadelphia Flyers. Not a bad pickup here. He gets a 3-year ELC, AAV of $1.08 million. It starts at the beginning of next year. It's not too surprising there. Berglund has been playing over in the SHL, putting up 7 goals and 12 points in 40 games. It seems that the Flyers have been wanting to get him under contract, and they're finally able to do so. So really good stuff there, but Jack Berglund does wind up signing with the Philadelphia Flyers. So very interesting note there, but those are our 4 signings for our past couple of days. That's Hagens in Boston, Nyberg in Minnesota, Livanovich in Pittsburgh, and Berglund in Philadelphia. All signed ELCs, so very interesting note there. Next, going over to a couple of injury updates. We have a handful of injury updates here to talk about. So first, Alex Lyon missed Thursday's game for the Buffalo Sabres with a lower body injury and will be reevaluated next week. So not great news there for the Buffalo Sabres. Lyon's probably, you would say, being the starter for the Buffalo Sabres in the playoffs. They have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen who could easily do it. That's really bad blow there to lose Lyon for the next week at least. We know Heiskanen left Thursday's game with a lower body injury and didn't return. He needed to undergo imaging, and it seems like he will miss the rest of the regular season. He should be ready to go for the playoffs, but Heiskanen, who was injured on Thursday, is going to miss at least the last 3 games of the regular season. It's not great news there for Dallas. John Gibson also left Thursday's game with injury and didn't return, so not great news there. If the Red Wings are without Gibson for the last few games of the season, that could be a terrible blow for their playoff hopes. Dmitry Kulikov sustained a broken finger, Seth Jones sustained a broken foot, and both are out for the rest of the season. Now, once again, the Panthers season is only I think 3 or 4 games left, but still, not great news there that both Jones and Kulikov are injured, so very interesting note there. Roman Josi missed Thursday's game with upper body injury and is out day to day, so hopefully nothing too serious, and Yoshi's able to get back for the playoff push at some point for the Preds. Luke Hughes has underwent undisclosed surgery, and Jack Hughes, who has a lingering injury, have both been shut down for the rest of the season. So the Devils will be without Luke Hughes and Jacob Markstrom for the remaining few games of the regular season, so not surprising there. Tony Angelo, who missed the last 2 weeks with lower body injury, returned to game action on Thursday, so it was a big boost there for the Islanders to get a really solid 4 or 5 defensemen back into the lineup. After missing only 17 days, Thomas Chabot returned to game action on Thursday after recovering from a broken arm. So 17 days it took for Chabot to go from being injured to being back on the ice. His recovery timeline was 6 to 8 weeks. So that is insane and a massive boost for the Ottawa Senators. On top of that, Connor Dewar missed Thursday's game with lower body injury and is out day to day. Once again, just day to day. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious for Dewar. Declan Carlisle, who missed nearly a month with lower body injury, was actually off of long-term injury reserve and returned to game action on Thursday. So that was a big boost there for Tampa. And then Anthony Stolarz, lower body injury. Brandon Carlo, lower body injury, and Dakota Joshua, upper body injury, all left Wednesday's game for the Toronto Maple Leafs and did not return. Not sure how serious any of those 3 injuries are, but if they are any longer than like a week thing, they're probably going to be out for the rest of the regular season. So, very interesting note there, but a couple of bad blows when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs lineup. So, very interesting note there. Those are all the injury updates from our past couple of days. Next, we're going over to some recalls and reassignments. When it comes to some recalls, the Carolina Hurricanes recalled Brind'Amour, Nadeau, Slavin, and Legao. Now, I think I didn't mention this in the injury update, but the Canes did scratch a whole bunch of players on Thursday, including Chatfield, Slavin, Stell, Martinic, Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov. So they scratched a lot of them. They were all undisclosed injuries. And I know Stahl, Martinic, and Chatfield for a fact were injured in the last couple of days, but the fact that they all got scratched with an undisclosed injury tag sort of makes you wonder if it's maybe just load management. But either way, because of those guys missing that game, they need some more healthy bodies up at the NHL level, so they called up those 4 guys. The Red Wings recalled Postava because of the injury to John Gibson. The Panthers recalled Alsher and Janssen, who made their NHL debuts on Thursday, due to the injuries to Kulikov and Jones. Dawes and Villan were recalled by the New Jersey Devils because of the injuries to guys like Luke Hughes and Jacob Markstrom. Coco was recalled by the Seattle Kraken because Matt Murray has taken a personal leave due to some personal reasons. Aktayamov, Hames, and Teverberg were recalled by the Toronto Maple Leafs as they're going to try and continue to get some more younger players into the lineup. And I actually think Aktayamov and Hames actually got into game action on Thursday, so really good stuff there for those 2. And then also William Villanueva was recalled by Toronto, and Mitch Gibson was recalled by the Washington Capitals, which just provides some added depth. So very interesting note there when it comes to some reassignments. Lucas Reichel was reassigned by Boston. Ram Murka was reassigned from the WHL to the AHL. Ivan Rybikin was reassigned from the QMJHL to the AHL. Hovorka was reassigned by the Florida Panthers because of the other call-ups that they made. Yakimchuk was reassigned by the Ottawa Senators because of the activation of Chabot. Marushev was sent down by the Pittsburgh Penguins because Skinner's back. Ellen was reassigned from the KHL to the AHL for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Dylan Duke was reassigned by Tampa. They didn't need him at the NHL level anymore. And Drool was reassigned by Toronto Maple Leafs because they recalled all those other guys. So very interesting note there, but also very interesting recalls and reassignments from our past couple of days. Next, just going over to a couple of quick news updates, and then we'll go over to the trade rumors. So first, Alex Ovechkin mentioned that he will not make a retirement until after the season ends at some point in the offseason. So Ovechkin's in the final year of his contract, and he's been a really solid player throughout his entire career, has broken Wayne Gretzky's goal record. So there's been a lot of questions. Is this going to be Ovechkin's last season, or is he going to try and do one more season after this year? So it seems like he'll make a decision in the offseason. I would think that if Ovechkin does come back, he'd probably just sign like a 1-year deal with the Caps. So it'll be very interesting to see there, but it does sound like Ovechkin will make some sort of decision in the offseason after the regular season ends for the Washington Capitals. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to the Seattle Kraken, according to Elliot Friedman, Ron Francis, the president of hockey ops in the Seattle Kraken organization, has stepped down from the role. So Francis, who was originally hired to be the first ever GM in Seattle history, recently got promoted to hockey ops as Jason Botterill was made the GM of the Seattle Kraken, is now stepped down. So very interesting note there. Not sure who who they have to replace him yet, or if they are going to replace him as president of hockey ops, if they're just going to let Botterill run as the GM position. But very interesting note there that the Kraken could be looking to try and add to their management group as well. So very interesting note there. According to some recent reports too, the Devils and the Maple Leafs have been given permission to interview assistant GM in Florida, Sonny Mehta. So Mehta was a guy who we previously talked about the Leafs having some major interest in and being one of their leading candidates for that GM job in Toronto. Apparently New Jersey is also interested in him, so very interesting note there. It seems like Mehta will probably get a GM job somewhere in the offseason. So very interesting note there, and it seems that the Panthers are okay with potentially losing him. So interesting note there, but Mehta has been given permission to interview with both the Devils and the Maple Leafs. So we shall wait and see if this comes to fruition. And Mehta does get one of those two GM jobs, so we'll have to wait and see on that. According to some recent reports, Patrick Roy is going to stay with the New York Islanders in a scouting role. So even after being fired as head coach, it seems like Roy is going to stay with the New York Islanders for the time being and be some sort of a scout advisor, I guess, or something like that. So interesting note there, but even after being fired, Wall will stay with the New York Islanders. And according to some recent reports, Anaheim Ducks have extended GM Pat Verbeek to a multi-year extension. This is great news for the Anaheim Ducks. Verbeek has been a really solid GM. Sure, he's had some tough contract negotiations with guys like McTavish and Zegras, and yes, sometimes it's not working overly good, but the Ducks are currently in a playoff spot on the cusp of ending their, 9-year playoff drought, something like that. So the Ducks on the cusp of making the playoffs. Verbeek's definitely done some really good things for the Anaheim Ducks team, and I think the multi-year extension is pretty good. So all in all, all stuff there from the Ducks, as they have extended Pat Verbeek on a multi-year extension. So an interesting note there. And lastly, we're going over to a couple of trade rumors. We're still in the playoff push, so there's still not a ton of trade rumors to talk about, but there are three interesting ones that I think deserve some talking about here, even with it being the final week of the regular season. So we're going to start off here with Chris Johnston. He mentions that the top priority for whoever becomes the new general manager in the New Jersey Devils organization has to be the Nico Hischier situation. Now, I recently did a video, I'm not sure if it's uploaded yet or not by the time this video hits YouTube, talking about the Devils offseason. And I said that one of the priorities going into the offseason for the New Jersey Devils was the Nico Hischier situation. He's entering the final year of his deal. He's a pending UFA next year, so he's a year away from hitting unrestricted free agency. He's been the Devils' captain over the past couple of years. He's their top line center. He's a really solid player. So they have to figure this out. Chris Johnston says that he doesn't think that the Devils want to go into next season with Hischier being unsigned. So he says that they have to figure out, is Hischier open to an extension? What does that extension look like? Should they sign him to an extension? Is he willing to sign an extension? And if he's not willing to sign an extension, you gotta trade him. And we know that there's a lot of teams out there who need top two centers. Imagine if Nico Hischier came on the market, there would be a ton of teams who would have some massive interest in him. So, once again, I'm not going to say it's a guarantee he gets dealt, because he has been one of the New Jersey Devils leaders over the past couple of years, a really solid point producer. But if he says flat out that he doesn't want to sign an extension in New Jersey after this year and he wants to sort of play out the regular season, don't you think Jersey would probably want to try and get the best return they can and potentially let him walk as a UFA, given how important he has been to that team over the past couple of years, being the number one pick from 2017? So very interesting note there. We'll have to wait and see exactly what happens. But like I said in my offseason preview video, this is a situation we do have to keep our eye on, because if he doesn't want to stay in New Jersey and he becomes available for trade, there would be a ton of teams who will have some interest, and I could see the Devils get a haul for him. So we'll have to wait and see on that. I think the preference will be to try and extend him, but we'll have to wait and see what happens in the offseason. Next, going over to the Edmonton Oilers and the Detroit Red Wings. According to Oilers analyst Matthew Panchisny, might be pronouncing that name wrong, after Dave Pagnola mentioned that there were some rumblings that Darnell Nurse could be dealt in the offseason. Pancini wound up saying that maybe the landing spot for Nurse, if he does get dealt in the offseason, is the Detroit Red Wings, given the fact that the Red Wings have goalie Sebastian Cossa, which the Oilers are really high on and would love to add to their goaltending system. So that's an interesting scenario. Nurse for Cossa is definitely not going to be a one-for-one sort of deal. Once again, I do think that the Red Wings could benefit from adding another top four defenseman. I know Nurse is a defensive liability, but he's still a really good player. If the Oilers were to retain somewhere around the $2 to $3 million mark, get his AAV down, it's like $6.5 million AAV. I think that'll be a doable sort of trade for a lot of different teams. Now, getting Cossa, who's one of the top goalie prospects in the NHL, and especially for the Detroit Red Wings, would be something else, because he looks like he's going to have a really bright future. Now, the Red Wings do have Augustine, who they could try and keep instead, which is a possibility. But moving Cossa would be very interesting. Like, it would probably have to take Nurse being moved with like a first round pick, maybe a prospect, to get Cossa at this point because of that contract and because of how good Cossa is. So that would be an extremely difficult trade to pull off. But I could see it. Like, the Red Wings could definitely use another offensive defenseman, someone who can play in the second or third pair. The Oilers don't have really good faith in their goaltending, and I think Cossa would definitely improve their goaltending, maybe not next year, but in a couple of years' time once he's developed. I think this could be a really good trade for both sides. I just don't think with Nurse's contract and how much of a defensive liability he's been, a one-for-one trade makes any sort of sense for the Detroit Red Wings. So it would have to include a whole bunch of sweeteners, but it's an interesting concept that Nurse could go to Detroit. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if this sort of deal could happen, even if it's not with Cossa involved, because I do think the Red Wings could use some more added defensive help. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But when it comes to Darnell Nurse, keep an eye on him in the offseason, as there's a very good chance he could get dealt, and maybe the Red Wings are a landing spot, so we'll have to wait and see on that. And Josh Yohe mentioned recently again that the Pittsburgh Penguins could be a landing spot if the Dallas Stars decide to trade Jason Robertson. So once again, that's not too surprising. Robertson is a really solid top six skilled scoring winger for the Dallas Stars. He's in the final year of his deal. Yohe mentions that there is the threat of an offer sheet this offseason because he is an RFA who is offer sheet eligible. He's probably going to command around like $9 to $10 million. Do the Stars really want to go there? I'm not exactly sure. The cap is going up, so we'll have to wait and see. But that will be very interesting because once again, if the team offers Robertson like $10 to $11 million, it'll probably cost them like 2 first-round picks. But if they were to do that, they would really put the Dallas Stars in a bind. So if the Dallas Stars don't want to go through an offer sheet process, then maybe they try and trade him if he doesn't want to sign an extension before the offer sheet potential happens. And once again, I think they could get a really good haul. I think their preference is to extend Robertson because he has been such a good piece over the past couple of years after being a 2017 second-round draft pick. But once again, if his ask is too much, or if he doesn't want to extend in Dallas, there could be a trade. And Yohe mentions that Pittsburgh would be a very interesting landing spot. He says that Kyle Dubas loves to add some of the younger players. He says that Dubas would put a huge package up for Jason Robertson. So it'd be very interesting. I could see that happen. We've seen the Penguins at guys like Chinikov and Soderblom who are on the younger side of things who have been able to really help that team. And maybe Robertson's another one. They could sign Robertson because they do have the cap space. They could play him in top 6 minutes with guys like Crosby or Malkin. Yeah, that would be a very fantastic fit. Now, once again, this all hinges on if Dallas does trade him or not, which I think at this point in time is more unlikely. I still think it's more likely he signs an extension in Dallas. Very interesting concept because I could see the Penguins have some major interest in a guy like Jason Robertson if he was to become available. So we'll have to wait and see on that. I'll let you guys thoughts on all of this down in the comment section below. That's all I'm going to talk about here. Do the Pittsburgh Penguins try and trade for Jason Robertson? Do the Detroit Red Wings try and trade for Darnell Nurse? And what happens with Nico Hischier? Does he stay or is he dealt in the offseason? Love to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that. Plus all the other news, injuries, and signings from our past couple of days. That's all we're going to talk for today. Once again, if you haven't already, leave a like, leave a subscribe, tell all your friends the best hockey content on YouTube is right here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. So definitely don't forget to keep up on my YouTube channel. Leave a subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. I would love to hear your guys' opinion on all that was discussed here today. Don't forget to stay tuned for my live streams in the next couple of weeks. We're doing some playoff live streams, so don't forget to stay tuned for that. I also have made a Buy Me a Coffee account. If you guys really do want to support the channel and you want to see it continue to flourish, go over to the account. I'll link the link to it in the description below and make a donation. It really does help with the channel. On top of that, I also do a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So you can check that out. I'll go into that down in the description below as well. Check it out if you want to. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.